to Beware Spoilers. I am Adam. Let's talk about Miss Marvel. It's been a very long day today. I'm tired. So what we got is episode 3 really starts diving more and more into what the powers are and establishing who a villain might be going forward. Like who's going to be the real antagonistic force to Kamala over the course of this. And it appears that what it's going to be is that this bangle or armband or whatever we're going to call it, or bracelet, or let me list out synonyms real quick. But like that thing that she has is like it comes from a race of genies, or jinn as they're called, which is the proper name for what we colloquially call genies now. So that's what this comes from. She's got this armband that comes from that, and all this kind of cool stuff. Now, taking into consideration this plus Kevin Feige's comments regarding we're going to see a clear way forward for the MCU as Phase 4 comes to an end, I'm thinking there's a connection to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I'm thinking that, let's see, I'm thinking that this is, like, when I first watched the episode, my first thought was, oh, so it's kind of like basically the general concept is she touches this thing and awakens her power and all of that. The difference is that it seems bound to the bangle, the powers, rather than rather than her innately having that ability. That guy really should not have gone. And that's a big difference between an inhuman and a regular human. So what we end up with is this interesting kind of idea that she's getting her powers from the bangle, and without the bangle she is Kamala, as normal, as it appears. Now, the other thing is that the clandestine, who are the organization that want to use her, use the bangle for their own needs and desires, are planning, want to use it to get her back to their own parallel dimension. And I think that that's one of the things that people need to look at and address. Someone at work was like, I don't know, how does this work? There's alternate dimensions too within the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I don't understand. And the thing is, Marvel has always had pocket dimensions that are kind of adjacent to the main dimension. And like Kunlun, it's kind of like that, where it's like it is this little pocket dimension. Like Shang-Chi had that too. The mirror dimension, the dark dimension. There are all of these other adjacent dimensions to the universe that exist, but you need to know what you're doing to get there or use it to your advantage. So I think if we're going to look at this from a perspective of what's going on, they want to get home. It's basically like they want to get back to, let's just put it this way, into the perspective of people who may be familiar with other aspects of Marvel lore. Think of it as they want to get back to Kunlun. That's basically all it is that you have a group of people who are from Kunlun who got stuck here and now want to get back there. How do they do that? And the way they do that, apparently, is Kamala with this bangle that she has, and apparently her grandmother has the other one. So it's interesting to see how that plays out. We get our first real action sequence of the show, where she is dealing with a fight at, what's it called? She's dealing with the attack of the clandestine trying to catch her. It's an interesting premise, and the way they're executing is kind of cool. and I feel like there's definitely there's certainly more to, there's more to explore. There's more to look at and be like, okay, so here's what, there's more to this world beyond just, getting into the obvious, but they haven't quite gotten there yet, but they will. Give it time. We're 3 episodes into a 6 or 8 episode miniseries, possibly season 1 of a lengthy TV show, but it could be cool to see where they go with that. I would like to see more development of the world, and I think, like I said in the last episode, when we were talking about the inclusion of Damage Control, who was not really in this episode, thankfully, but I think Damage Control really only works in the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe if Damage Control is an offshoot of the government that is currently run by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, as she was in her 2 appearances so far. Like, unless that is the case, then there's really no point for Damage Control to be here, and this can be the genesis point for that. Also, the idea of investigating, relics that have power that are on Earth is an interesting approach to go with, especially as we get into what, if any, role does Kang the Conqueror have in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward beyond just Loki? Where is that story going? Why is that story relevant, to everything else going on? And as of right now, it doesn't seem to have too much relevance, besides the fact that Kang the Conqueror is there, and he is an entity that needs to be, we need to know is present. There is no real explanation as to where they go from there. Now, I don't think Kang the Conqueror is a great, Thanos-level villain in the same way that, Darkseid isn't a great first Justice League movie level villain. Where it's I think that Kang the Conqueror works as, here is a multiversal conqueror who is here to try and, who's here to try and take over this universe. That's what he does. And he's going to invade, and now it's time for, the Avengers to unite to stop him. And I think that's the best way. I heard someone complaining today about not liking the younger characters. I think that one of the things is that at this point we've grown accustomed to these characters, and we've seen them grow, and we've seen all of that kind of stuff. And it's if you look back at who the other characters were, it's Thor didn't have a good movie until 2017. Because his first 2 solo movies aren't great. Thor is not a fantastic movie. It's okay, but it's not fantastic. And then Thor: The Dark World is one of the worst Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. So, in a world where that's going to be what we're looking at, it took till 2017 for audiences to fall in love with the character, and he was introduced in 2011. 6 years is a long time to sit there and be well, we have to get people acclimated to this character. Captain America, wasn't fully adored by the public until The Winter Soldier. He's great in the first Avenger, but the first Avenger is one of the lowest grossing Marvel movies to date, and that costume in Avengers, in the first Avengers movie, doesn't do any favors in trying to get him, liked by the general public, because I feel that looks silly. The only 2 characters who were introduced and immediately, there are 3 characters who were introduced and immediately had unanimous support where the fans loved it. And that would be Chadwick Boseman, who has since passed, as Black Panther. People loved him from his first appearance in, what was that movie? Civil War, up until, his most recent appearance. And then Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., people loved as well, out of the gate. And Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. People to this day do not like Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. Me included. I'm not thrilled about that. They could have done the Hawkeye TV show without Clint Barton, and it would have been just as good. and people, and there are very few characters that had universal acclaim out of the gate, and then remained with that same level of fan support. To sit here and be like, well, I need time for these guys to grow on me. Well, that's fair. Like, you may not like them immediately out of the gate, but you may eventually like them. You may eventually, fall in love with these characters. I've already, like, the way that they've had Kamala so far, she feels like Peter Parker, but without the emotional baggage to an extent. Like, we don't have to have the death of a family member to motivate her to do things. She's just this positive, glowing, great, let's do it. Like, it's an energetic enthusiasm to her character, and Iman Vellani does a lot to move that along. The relationship she has with Bruno is fantastic and really fun to watch, and there's something about this show that feels so different from the rest of what Marvel has done on television, not even just within the MCU with WandaVision on, that were strictly Marvel Studios productions, but also including Agent Carter, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Inhumans, Daredevil, and all of that. And it's just a certain lightness to it, and a certain, this is not the be-all and end-all of the universe. This is not not every mission has to be cataclysmic. Not every, thing needs to have the world is going to end if we fuck this up, like Moon Knight did. Like, Moon Knight had some interesting ideas, but I think that it was bogged down by how huge everything was. And I think that how sprawling the Marvel Cinematic Universe is also starting to not help it as much. Because I think that as the Marvel Cinematic Universe gets bigger, you end up with more and more of these questions of why are there not more Avengers responding to this thing. I think the biggest example of that is if you look at, Eternals. With the Eternals, when you end up with, the episode ending in a celestial appearing in the sky, and it's I'm taking people, good day, we're going to do judgment on this planet. You would think that would be the premise of the next Avengers movie, is that, oh, there's a celestial coming. We need to stop that. But, nah, we got other things to do. And you would think Doctor Strange at least, or if not Doctor Strange, then Wong, as Sorcerer Supreme, would respond and be like, oh, that's a little fucked up. Or in Egypt, when what's his name, when Moon Knight and Khonshu turn the sky back 2,000 years, and everyone on the planet can see what's happening, there's no response from anyone in the more cosmic side, or the more or even the other parts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to be like, oh, that's a little weird. I don't know, it's just one of those things that as the universe gets bigger and as we get into more and more things with more and more characters, the more the universe will feel kind of disjointed, where things aren't being referenced properly. Fact of the matter is, there was no good way to do a reference to No Way Home in Multiverse of Madness. But they tried. They certainly tried. And if Multiverse of Madness takes place before Hawkeye, which is what the new timeline indicates, is that show takes place before Hawkeye, then it's a Christmas movie. But I don't think Sam Raimi knew that, because there's nothing in the movie that indicates that it takes place at Christmas. Because, it's a very narrow window for that movie to take place, if you take into consideration the fact... Oh, no, at the end, it's winter. And he's got that P code. Alright, so, yeah, I mean, it could be. That makes sense. I didn't even think about that at the very end when Clea shows up. But, I mean, we're getting off topic here, but I think that what they're doing with this show is interesting, and what they're some of the new ideas are pretty cool. I can't wait to see them really dive deeper into it, which is really what I want to see them do. I want to see further exploration of the mythology that goes into a show like this, and a further what's what I'm looking for here? A deeper look at everything going on in the universe at large. Could be an interesting thing to see what's all to see happen. if they do it right, it'll be great. If not, then, worst case scenario, there's some new, deeper concepts that they just won't ever explore again. But I think that audiences are gripping to this. The audiences that matter are gripping to this. And when I say the audiences that matter, I mean, people who are going to show up and watch it and not, the quote-unquote fanboys who hate anything that isn't about, a white guy, who tend to show up in droves anytime something like this comes out. And look, you can point to streaming numbers and all of that. I don't know how accurate streaming numbers are. I've never heard of the company that tracks it. I don't know how they track it. I haven't looked at their methodology. I know for damn sure that, Nielsen isn't the most accurate metric on the planet, because they've been de-accredited by whoever accredits Nielsen. And because they've lost their accreditation, there's no real look at, that's the problem, is that because their methodology is so private, because they don't want the studios or the TV companies influencing who is, influencing the stats by paying off people to watch at certain time, people with Nielsen boxes, they don't release that information. However, they also don't release demographic breakdowns of who is actually, watching, the show. So we kind of just gotta take their word that, we just gotta kind of take their word that they're being forthcoming about everything, which isn't a great system to determine multi-million-dollar advertising campaigns, but what are you gonna do? Nothing else you really can do. So yeah. So I think that's just about it. I think we've reached all we can really talk about with this. I'm now that the show, we have some semblance of direction, and we have something that resembles a general plot trajectory. I'm interested to see where they go from here. It's not like I was disinterested before, but my problem is, if you look at the original way the show worked, and the original, not plot per se, but the original, what's what I'm looking for here? How was I say? The original, the way it was set up, it seemed like a slice of life almost, where it's this is Kamala's life, and this is her becoming a superhero, which would have been fine. I don't need some, giant cataclysmic thing for her to stop. And they could have just done this show that's just this high school girl dealing with being a high school junior, and everything that comes along with that. They could have just done that show, and it would have worked just as well, I think, without needing to go too deeply into what's going, without going too deeply about, here's some cataclysm tied to her backstory. And it's so charming, everything about the show, including the way they do the graphics and how they're melded into the world, and it's just fun to watch. So we'll wrap up there for today. Ms. Marvel comes out every Wednesday and is available on Disney Plus. So we'll wrap up there for today. We'll be back with tomorrow is the release of Elvis, and today's the release of Elvis, but I'm not going to see a 3-hour movie after work. When I can see a 3-hour movie after work tomorrow, when I get out early. So I'm going to do that tomorrow, and then The Black Phone on Saturday. So, on that note, until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.